Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Today's Teens podcast, an inside look at the building of the Today's Teens conference, which takes place in February of 2025. I am your host, Chris Chase. I am here with my producer, my little sister, my homie, Misha Watson.
Hey, I'm so good. I'm so excited. This guest is kind of a legend. That's what I heard.
Like the rumor is that this guest of ours has done it all.
Right? That's what I heard too. I heard the same thing. And you know what? I believe it's true.
I believe church work, nonprofit work, TV personality,
Ooh.
host of hosts.
Her fashion is on 10. Just so everyone knows who's listening, she cooks. Always cooks.
Like Misha, we in our opening episode, I called you the host of hosts.
Right.
Host of hosts.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Every host of hosts needs sort of like a star to aspire to.
To shine next to.
Needs sort of like a beacon to lead them.
A beacon, yes.
An influence to sort of shape them.
Come on.
A light to guide them.
Yes.
How to use voice, how to use poise, all of those things. That's our guest, Misha.
Yes, it is.
That's our guest. Our guest today is one of two of our main stage hosts of today's Teens Conference. Melinda Estabrooks is in the building. Melinda, what is up? Let's go.
Okay. That was one of the best intros, honestly, I've ever had. It was actually embarrassing, but it made me feel a little good to be like the host of hosts.
You are.
But thank you. But that was awesome. Thank you for that intro. But yeah, I'm glad to be here. I love this. I mean, if we could do this all the time, and this could be our full-time job, I'm in. Sign me up.
So sponsors, you heard that, sponsors. So wherever you are, listen. I don't know where you're at Jiffy Peanut Butter, but listen, send us a couple bucks and we can make this happen. The three of us, it'd be a good time. Melinda, it's so great to have you with us. Your impact on so many lives. Let me cook for a couple seconds. Your impact on so many lives is just it's a lot. You've done so much for so many people. You have opened doors for so many people. You have provided space for voices that wouldn't necessarily have a chance to even be heard, myself included. I know Misha would say the same thing about for herself as well. The way you champion people, the way you've allowed your story and your experiences to allow other people to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel loved, right?
Yes.
You've done this in a real way. And so to have the opportunity to kind of turn the tables and to be able to talk to you and ask you questions about your life, this is a privilege for us little ones, us young ones.
Thank you. That means
right. Like it really means that.
It means a lot. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Go for it.
I'm thinking, one of the things I if I can be so open and transparent, is sometimes you do all this work and you actually don't take time to just pause and go, oh, that's what I've done. Or, and again, it's this sort of like balance of not wanting to be like, oh, look at me, look what I've done, but also to be honest about celebrating. Yeah, look what I've done. Look where God has taken me, and look how I've really leaned into the mission or this strong kind of call to what I'm doing. And so I appreciate that, because I tend to keep just rolling. I do something and I just keep going, and then go on to the next thing, and I don't take a pause or moment to go, oh yeah, I guess I have done a lot of things, and I hope it has been impactful for people, and I hope that my story does lead people to wanting to be curious about Jesus or the way of Jesus, or the encouragement to be part of community and belonging. So thank you for that, because even right now I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I have done some good things in my life.
Some good things. I got goosebumps.
Good to be reminded.
I got goosebumps. This isn't the purpose of the show, but I think it is a part of it. It's like we're able to give people flowers too. right? And we're not waiting until the end of your career, but like in the middle of it, while you're still walking up the mountain, we want to be able to give you your flowers and be like, thank you for your contribution. But my way of meeting you was, again, you're a name. Misha said it. You're legendary in the media space, in the ministry space. But I met you at Today's Teens 2021. It was our first during the pandemic, not out of the pandemic. During the pandemic, we had to be online, and you were one of our hosts, and I was a speaker at that event, and you and I were able to do a little bit of an interview, and I'm watching you sort of move in. You're getting to know me, and then you move into producer brain, and then you move into host brain, and then you move into like, you're able, not everybody can do that. Not everybody can go and like jump from like, some of us are really good at one thing. We can maybe do two things. You were able to do multiple things really, really, really well. And you can tell that there's an experience behind a camera and to know things and to be able to hear a producer and all this sort of stuff like that. And then I got a chance to be a part of a dad's men's group for See Hear Love for a season, and got to get to know you that way. And I remember I'm sitting in my kitchen. I'm looking at my deck. I'm overlooking my deck. My house isn't that big. And I'm sitting, and I remember talking with you on the phone as you were pitching this idea, and you were talking and you were speaking into my life, and we maybe had one or two conversations, but you were saying, I don't know what there is, but there's something on your life. And I'm looking at this little deck here that's just filled with a barbecue. That's it. And I remember walking and pacing that deck, and I'm listening to you and being able to be a part of that, about that show, See Hear Love, was really, really, really impactful for my life. Melinda, how long has See Hear Love been on television digital space? Like, how long has it been? What season is this now, or what season are you going into?
10. This is season 10, Chris, and 9 years. Had this dream. I had no idea how to do this, but I was on a women's show prior, and it ended. And I remember having meetings with women from Ontario who were saying there's nothing in Canada that can amplify the voice of the Canadian women. I was wanting to reach this next generation called the millennials at the time. As a Gen X, it was like the next generation are the millennials. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, God, I'll reach those millennials for you. And how am I going to do it? And so it was by a web show. Because I talked to a couple millennials at the time, and they're like, it's web, Mel, it's, it's web. So started it that way, Chris. And it really was, and I'll say this, a lot of people are like, call it the Melinda Show, call it Melinda and Friends, call it. And I said, for the past 25 years, I've been speaking at conferences and youth conferences and events and even men's conferences and retreats from 10 people to thousands of people. And every time I would finish speaking, three things would be kind of the themes or angst or challenges people had. And one was, I don't feel seen. And young people would say, like, my parents don't see me. Women would say, my husbands don't see me. People just didn't feel seen. They said, if I was sitting on the floor somewhere, I literally would be, people would walk by and not even acknowledge that I exist. And I feel that in my own home, in my own workplace, in my own family. And then the second thing they'd say is, I don't, feel heard. That my voice doesn't matter. I'm this person. I'm a woman. I'm of color. And I'm not asked at the table to share my thoughts or share my story. And I feel like I don't have any like agency or opportunity to share my story because, people aren't supporting me or don't know where I can do that. And then the third, which was the most heartbreaking, was I don't feel loved. I don't feel loved by others. I don't feel loved by God. And deep rooted is I don't love myself, which was always the hardest things to hear, no matter what age you are. It's like, I don't love this, how I look, how I am, my neurodivergence, my disability, my past, my regrets, all of that. I don't love myself. And so that's how the name of the show came about, See Hear Love, because I wanted it right front and center, that actually the show is about that we are going to ensure that you are seen, heard, and loved by God. So that's the show. That's what you get. That's what the expectation or what we are offering, to provide a online space for that to happen. And so it was hard work. I'm not going to lie. It has been hard work building this. And yet I'm so thankful for the people, the mentors, the friends, husband, so many people that have rallied to support, donors, supporters who believe in this, who I think believe at the core of the seen, heard, and loved is so needed in a time where we're faced with the epidemic of loneliness. We're faced with disconnection. We're faced with so much mental health struggles, so many things that I'm like, well, I'll be the one to steward this for you, God, and you just bring the people. You bring the ideas, and that's really how it's happened. And I don't want it to sound so like, it's not been hard work and that, but it really has been over the years just God in miraculous ways providing the right guests, the funding, the ideas. Like at 9 o'clock, it drives Chris, my husband, crazy because I'll be sitting there and lying and be like, I know what we're gonna do. Here's the idea. Here's the step. Like, it literally happens all at 1 a.m. Like and I feel like honestly for me, it's like Holy Spirit. It's like I'm stuck. It's like boom, and I literally will call that person. It's like I'm a yes. So I'm so thankful for the yeses. There have been so many people have said yes, and that is why the show has. We're now in our 10th season, and it's thrilling. It's been hard, but it's thrilling that you can start with an idea, see it launch, work hard, and be where I am now, where we're like on 3 stations: Yes TV, Miracle Channel, CHEA Check, CITL. We have a YouTube, podcast, socials. It's wild, and here it is. It's pretty awesome. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Like I love that you've been able to recognize the joy in the hard. Right? You've been able to recognize, because you can either do one, it's all been great, and you're sort of just kind of like suppressing all of the hard, like under the table, like it's never been bad at all, or it's been a begrudging burden where it's like it's only been hard and you've never known the joy. So for you to be able to going in 9 years, 10 seasons, let's acknowledge that. Netflix shows only last 2 seasons. Like they get kicked off immediately, right? And people don't watch television the same way. They don't do digital the same way like they used to. So for you to go 9 years, 10 seasons, again, flowers, because
thank you. And I will say this, just because part of why it's can be sustainable, why I've lasted this long, is like when I came to you, somebody needed like a dad show, a men's show. It's because men were telling me, hey, I'm watching See Her Love with my wives or partners. And some of these issues are actually men's issues too. So I was like, I guess so. And so that's how it came about. It's like I'm listening to people what they want, and then I'm like, okay, let's create then a men's show. And your season of shows, Chris, if I can kind of throw this back to you, like
no, you can't.
The impact of that and feedback on that, like men were like, thank you for allowing us, like our voices, to be heard through these men, because you guys were talking about mental health. You were talking about the overwhelming responsibility and stress of being a father and a man, and the way that you've put things on you. Culture has, family has expectations. It was pretty powerful. It was pretty open and raw, and it was very emotional. And the feedback I got from that was like, wow, like these men were willing to be open about their struggles on stress and anxiety and depression. We've never seen that so authentic in a Christian space, let alone a show on national TV. And so thank you for that. Thank you for your openness too, and for saying yes, because that was a really powerful season when you guys were on it. So that's how we can do it. It just keeps going. Like God's like, okay, here are the things.
And I remember, I think the first episode that we were filming, there was a difficulty that was happening in my life. And just even the acknowledgement before we were filming, hey, are you okay? Right? Like, and we're pastors, the 4 of us are pastors, like, or have pastoral senses, right? And so, nobody has to do that because they're thinking, oh, you're pastoring yourself, that sort of thing. So for everyone to kind of stop and go, dude, you good? Before we do this, you all right? Like, those are those moments, more than the conversations with the guys. Those moments behind the scenes are the things that, like, when I think back on that, though that time of literally sitting at this table behind me, like sitting there and having those conversations. It was, again, like I promise you, viewer, listener, we are going to talk about the conference. I promise you that it's going to happen. I promise. People are like, this has nothing to do with the conference at all, right? But like what I remember is that care, the background, and that your heart is that. Your heart is that. Your heart ultimately is caring for people. And that's not a TV personality. That's not a see, hear, love when you watch on digital or on a podcast. See, hear, love is the extension of that heart that you have for people, if that makes any sense. Like it's an extension of you. It's you in front of a camera, but it's you in front of a camera. And so I love that about you. And I love...
Wow, I didn't know this was going to be this kind of conversation. I'm like actually getting quite emotional, Chris, because thank you. Again, you do this work, and sometimes you hope that it connects, and you hope that as a follower of Jesus that you live out what you're putting out there on television. That's one of the biggest things, some of the hardest things, is that as a public personality, am I the person publicly as I am personally? And if I don't care for the people, then it's almost like, how dare I just pretend I care for people on air?
100%.
You can't. It has to be real and true about who you are and the people that you're with. And I thank you for that, because that's a big thing for me, that I do care and really love and respect and want to amplify these voices and these guests. And I don't want that to be just because I want to have a good show and have high ratings, but that it really comes from truly me. And like this, again, this could be a long conversation, but this love of Jesus that I have received in my life, such grace, compassion from others, from Jesus. I really, really hope that is something that I exemplify, that I represent in the work and in the person that I am. So I appreciate that you called that out, because that is something that I really hope for at the core. I mean, my show can have like 0 people watching, but I hope that is what people come out of being with me and being on See Hear Love. So thank you for that.
Well, it doesn't have 0 viewers; it has people watching.
Okay, yeah,
so just in case,
it does have a lot of viewers, Chris.
Right, just in case someone's wondering.
Viewers. Yes.
Michelle will appreciate this. So boom, people watch the show. Just there you go. Right. Talking about bridging.
Yes.
Right. And being seen and people knowing who you are. A part of that in your life is being a part of the Today's Teens conference. Right. People can see on See Hear Love, they don't know that you have a heart for youth ministry, and you have a heart for youth leaders and student leaders, and you have been a part of the. Let me rephrase the question, right? And you might want to, if you decide to put an average of years and not the amount of years, I understand that. No, I'm not going to hold that against you. How long have you been involved with the Today's Teens conference?
So for those who know or don't know, Matt Wilkinson is he the director, the maestro of the.
He's the captain, I call him.
He's the captain. So here is what we were texting last night. This is what we came up with. So the Today's Teen Conference was this light conference, and then it merged with Today's Teens in 2003. And we realized that I have been with Today's Teens Conference since 2008. So I've been with Today's Teens for 20 years, but emceeing 16 years. But now we're thinking that I've emceed for 20 years off and on, but regularly for 16 years. That is how long I have been doing Today's Teens Conference. Okay. I was a baby when I started.
For point of reference, my daughter turned 16 this year. So you've been doing this for the length of time as an MC, as a life of my child.
Okay, when you put in that perspective, it's been a long time. Now, I have to say this. This is why it's so amazing, because I first was invited by Matt when I was in my mid-20s as this like youth worker with World Vision, but I was working with churches with this initiative called the 30-Hour Famine back then, and he had me come and speak. So I was actually mid-20s working with youth pastors and youth, workers for this initiative, okay? And then I stayed on, and now I've been, emceeing over 16 years, but a part of this conference for over 20. I know.
So I would imagine, I love that. Like, I think continuity is a good thing. I really do think that continuity is a good thing. And the amount of, you think of a high school student in Ontario has 4 years, grade 9 to grade 12.
Right.
And so there are 3, maybe even 4 generations of students who you've been able to be a voice and impact their lives. Even if it's only for one day a year, you have been a constant in their life. That's we know about statistics of the average youth pastor and their stay and things like that, and church, the overturning of churches. Like, you've been a consistent voice in their lives for that. That's
time.
That doesn't happen. So I'd imagine with that, I would imagine that you have stories.
Oh, I do.
That you have stories, because this is an inside baseball podcast, right? We break things down a little bit, right? We don't call out names. We might have to, we have to kind of beep a couple things here and there to kind of protect you. But like, we tell stories. Like, when you think of today's teens and the legacy that you've been able to build, 20 years, 16 years on stage, being the voice of, we're going in this direction, we invite you to come with us. Right. What are some stories that naturally come to mind for you when you think about this conference?
Well, I have to say this, and maybe I'm just trying to make myself feel amazing, because this podcast is making me feel like amazing and invincible and like, wow. But, I've had 3, maybe 4 co-hosts, and I'm still the one standing. I had
let her cook.
4 other male co-hosts, and they're no longer co-hosting. Here I am. Now, Mike has been with me for a while, because I think Mike and I have been doing this for 8 years together, Mike Gordon and I. About 8 years. But I will say one of my favorites, to this day in 2016, they did a Who Looks Like Melinda and Who Looks Like Mike. It was the first time we'd ever done it. And run to the front of the stage and to vote who looks like. It was the most hilarious thing I've ever seen, because Mike had all kinds of people show up for him, guys, girls, youth workers, students that didn't even look like him, but like, it was hilarious. And then of course I got all the Filipinos, like all the Filipina girls, all lined up, all literally looking at me, singing, shouting, being me. That was actually hilarious. That was one of the funniest moments in 2016 when we were co-hosting. But Mike, I was like, you're a blonde Dutch boy, 6'7". You don't look like Mike Gordon. He's like, I do. I'm Mike Gordon. Like, it was like, and then people started putting beanie hats on. Like, that made that. I remember that year in 2016. That was really hilarious. I loved that moment. My other favorite moments were Green Room. One of my favorite heroes who recently passed away, Tony Campolo, was one of our speakers. And I love him. But Tony, if you know Tony, he loved his quiet space. And quiet isn't teens.
That's not the Green Room.
No. So Tony's trying to focus in, hear from God, sit quietly in the Green Room. Nope. Worship band, Mel, everybody's in there. And I remember, I'll never forget, Tony just looked over and said, can we have some quiet in here, please? I need to focus. Thank you. And it was just like, and we're done. We all scurried out into the Green Room. And the problem was with the Green Room is like, there was nowhere else to go. And so we were all standing in the dark in the back of the stage, like, no one could see anything. No one knew what was going on. But Tony now had the Green Room to himself. Focused on the Lord and his message. Now, he brought it, but I'll never forget that. And I remember those moments where I did tiptoe back in, and wow, Tony and I had a really good conversation about his heart for the next generation and his love for God, and how he so longed for this next generation to get it, to get Jesus. And that Jesus was about grace and love for the marginalized. And he was part of like the Red Letters at the time. And that was actually a very profound moment for me at Today's Teens when I was with Tony. Just, again, this like giant of the faith, and yet this very strong heart for the next generation. And that's why he was there. He's like, we have to capture their imagination, their curiosity, the essence of who Jesus is. And that's why I'm here, Melinda, because I want to share that so that it's not just some old stuffy religion. It's not rules, and it's not what not to do or the no's, but it's the yes to embracing this life with Jesus that will change you and change the world forever. I still remember that. I still get emotional about it because, and so that was Green Room. That was Green Room Today's Teen Conference. And I think personally, it's like, yes, I want to be, a mentor and leader for next generation, but it was a beautiful moment that I'm outputting. And then I was having like major input by Tony to encourage me to keep going. And maybe that's why I've been doing this for 16 years. Maybe
I was going to ask you that. I literally was
like, weird. I haven't processed this with anybody, but maybe that was part of it when I was sitting in the green room there and Tony's like, it's hard work, Mel. It's hard work. And he actually acknowledged, like, I see you running around doing the hosting, but we do this for the next generation. We do this for the kingdom on earth here as it is in heaven. We do this because Jesus is worth it. And then I remember thinking, I gotcha. Okay. And his whole life was spent doing that. And I'm like, he gets it. And I want to have that same kind of impact like Tony. And so I will never forget that moment. I'll never forget that moment at Today's Teen Conference. I don't know what year it was, but I'll never forget that. Now, everybody else was annoyed because we didn't get
they want to be in the green room.
But that was a really beautiful moment for me. I love that. I loved it. And so that was a great opportunity. So that's the thing, Chris, is like Today's Teen Conference is everything in the way of like, yeah, it's the fun and the crazy and the giveaways and the connection in the foyer and all that. But there's also these moments of, it's Jesus. This is why we do it. Here's why, here's tools. Like it's good. And I wish I had something like this when I was a teenager. I really do. Like I went to some things, but to be in spaces where there's over 1,000 people and they're choosing like, okay, not, it's everybody has their choice to say, hey, I choose Jesus, but to be there and people are there listening and leaning in and cheering each other on. And you see youth workers who you can see they're tired, but there they are with their kids,
on a Saturday.
Yeah. Committed to seeing them grow. And, it's impactful. Like my heart, sometimes like I get emotional where I'm like, hard work. And we do this because we love our kids and we do it because we love Jesus and we want our kids to love Jesus and know Jesus because Jesus has changed our lives. Like every youth worker would say, I'm not doing it because I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I know that Jesus makes a difference. And I think Today's Teen Conference always allows for that. It's very unique. I've never seen a conference where you have that. The youth workers come and then the students come and it's, but I can do that again. Wah, 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 wah. Like it's like that. Right. And so I think it's actually really cool that you actually have your youth worker with your students. You're not like separating them in two different events. It's in one event where they can be together. The youth worker can get support. The students can see and be with them, and it can be together. I think that's very unique. And I think that's what really is a standout for Today's Teen Conference is that it's the two blended and kind of melded together to ensure that we know it takes all. And we need to be together and we need to like unify ourselves and be stronger and be encouraged together. And I think the other powerful thing is when at the final part of Today's Teens Conference where we acknowledge the youth workers and the students have to clap for theirs and they're standing up and some have been there for 60 years and some just started a week ago and they're like, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? And they were clapping and like, way to go, youth workers. There is something so supernatural, miraculous about that and beautiful about kingdom of God, the church community that we're clapping these youth workers on to continue to lead and to serve. And then, we cheer, the youth workers have cheered on the students to say, you can do it. It's hard. Push through, lean in. We've got you. We're here for you. And that's been really amazing and emotional where there's been times at the Today's Teen Conference where we've had the youth workers like pray with the students. We've had moments where we're like, hey, youth worker, can you now like pray with your students in a little huddle? That has been like Holy Spirit powerful times. I remember standing there kind of like emceeing through that moment and going, oh, where like literally youth workers are like arms around the kids and praying over them. And the kids then have turned around and prayed for their youth worker. And so I don't know, it's emotional. I'm feeling the emotion right now, but it's emotional to see the connection between them. And that's what's so special. That's what's so special about this conference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it gives you an opportunity. I saw this picture of you sort of emceeing a moment like that, where you get to pastor alongside.
Yeah.
Again, it's like you're getting to use different facets of your experience and your leadership and your heart and your ministry that allow you to kind of lean into that space as well and to lead the charge in that space. To not sort of be like, well, I host and I do a game and then I throw to a video and then I walk off. But instead, you're sort of like, you get to be an active participant. You get to be our captain in those moments. Because as a youth pastor, I know that feeling of my students praying for me. And some of them are very articulate and poetic, and others of them, they're just sort of like, thank you for the words that you said. Just thank you for the words. I don't understand them, but thank you. But like that feeling of that student taking a step and trying and being vocalizing their prayers of appreciation, their prayers of hope for their pastor, and then being able to then likewise pray for them. That's led by somebody. That's led by somebody who's saying, and now you're going to do this. And so that must be exciting for you to be able to, year after year, different ways, kind of lean into that part of you, because you can't necessarily do that necessarily in studio space, but to be able in that space at that sort of a conference level, to be able to do that listening to you and watching you be emotional about it, it must mean something.
Chris, when you see over 1,000 people together and they're praying for one another and they're demonstrating what that means to be in community, to be the church, to be the Canadian church, to be of all ages, focusing on, hey, let's choose the way of Jesus. Let's help one another on the journey. Here's some resources and prayers. Like it's like supernatural. It's the way in which I believe like how we should be in the way of our spiritual Christian journey, together, celebration, worship, listening and learning, and then together praying and cheering one another on, and so I think it's a beautiful representation, what I see at the conference. And I hope more people come. I really do. I hope, for some of those churches that are saying, I feel so alone, isolated from other churches or other groups, this is a perfect way for you to be encouraged. And I know I'm doing like this pitch, but I really believe it. Listen, I've been there for 20 years, emceeing and hosting for 16. So I do believe in it. If I didn't, I would have been gone first year. But I think what I'm also seeing is that so many years, new churches come in and they're like, oh, we don't feel alone. Oh, I was just talking to a youth worker, Melinda, and they're struggling with exactly the same thing I am, like growth or discipleship or, whatever the issue is. And then I just talked to this person after a breakout and they're dealing with the same thing. And we just exchanged numbers. And now I've got a pastor friend, in Southern Ontario, and we're in Northern Ontario, who now we're connecting. And that's also what's so beautiful about this conference is the connection. Because we want to make sure that you're not alone in the work you're doing, because you can't obviously work in isolation. And so you need one another. And so for youth workers, it's a perfect way to feel connected, to be resourced, and to know that you're not alone in the work that you're doing and the hard work of youth ministry. And so I think that's really great. When I talk to students, for students, it's all like, this is fun. This is great. I get to be with like my friends. We get to walk to like McDonald's. And that's not a promo for McDonald's unless McDonald's wants to sponsor us.
Unless they're sponsoring us. Yeah. There's no free ads here. There's no free ads here on this podcast. No free ads.
Beep.
Burger joints. Burger joint.
Burger joints. Yes. But for the students, though, I will say, when I've talked to the students, they're like, it's so exciting to know that there's other students that want to, you know, think about Jesus and follow Jesus. Or Mel, there's one I'll never forget when a bunch of girls came up to me. They're from a church in Toronto, and they're like, we brought some of our girlfriends who are not churched. And they were kind of freaking out, but now they're like, whoa, is this what this is about? Like, and there's so many of you. I just thought it was your church and that only like 20 of you do this kind of thing. And their girlfriends were like, no, like it's bigger. Like this is what it means. Like when you follow Jesus, like you're part of like this bigger community. And so this conference, today's teens conference, isn't just like, I know it sounds like it's for church people, but there are many groups who bring people who are not churched, who are on the spiritual journey, who have questions, and questions have been answered. And more so, it's not even just about the content, it's about the community. Like literally the girls were like, wow, my girlfriends were impressed by the hangout, the people, how friendly people were, how like, wow, people are into this. And so that was really cool. That's been really great feedback over the 16 years when I'm hearing from students. Like, it's fun, it's meaningful, and it's a place to bring their friends. And so it's an amazing day. It's an amazing experience.
I've loved it since being involved in 2020 and now going on this 5 years running. It's an exciting time.
Yeah.
It's a really, really, really exciting time. And you talk about, you know, pastors and youth leaders getting to know one another. Because it's cross-denominational, you're not sort of stuck in the square, the circle, or whatever shape that you're in with your people. It allows you to learn different ways of seeing Jesus from different voices and having moments where your orthodoxy or your orthopraxy is sort of pushed a little bit, and you're having sort of like and having really good conversations. You're being stretched a bit a little bit. You're being molded a little bit, and you're able to. The idea of iron sharpening iron really takes place in a place like this, in a conference like this. I love it.
And Chris, what I also love too is it is diverse. I remember like what churches, and it was like the Chinese church in Toronto, and then the Korean church, you know, Mississauga, and the Guyanese, and then the Filipino, and like there was like, you're right, all denominations from Baptist to Christian Reform, Alliance, Pentecostal, like you name it. And I think, again, the picture of the body of Christ, the picture of the church at large. And I think that's what is so special about this conference, and what, you know, Matt and the team have really been really intentional about creating, like a space that's accessible to different denominations, different ages, along the spiritual journey or where you're at. It's really accessible, you know, in the content, in the breakouts, in, you know, the spaces of, you know, fun, and then reflection and prayer stations and lunchtime. Like it's a very thoughtful, intentional conference that has a lot of thought from youth pastors, youth workers. This isn't actually a conference made from corporate people. You know, this is actually created by youth workers for youth workers. It's for youth pastors, created by youth pastors. So I think people need to know that this is people whose heart is for next generation, heart for youth leaders, creating it for you. And I think that's really beautiful and unique too. It's the people working on the ground who are actually creating this day for you, based on their own experiences, their own struggles and things. So yeah, and I love it. I mean, sometimes as an MC and host, you kind of like get a chance to sit back and watch. Like sometimes when main speakers are speaking, I actually go to the side and watch the crowd, and I think it's one of the most beautiful things, because I watch where people are like, and they're writing something down like, oh, and I love those like aha moments in the midst of that, where people are like, I've never heard that before. I got it. And so I love that. And then I love that after a speaker speaks, there are many times I get a chance to say, hey, how did you feel? And for them, it's really encouraging for the speaker. I mean, they take the time, some of them fly in, they spend time to prepare. And more than not, most of the speakers have been like, it's been a really beautiful time. I felt really encouraged. I get a sense that people are with me, that they're listening. And so I really believe like this conference is with great intention, and that people come because they want to learn. They want to come because they want to get the most out of it. It's not just like we're sitting and being entertained, but people are coming because they want to learn and to connect. And so that's why, Chris, 16 plus years.
16 plus years.
Your daughter plus right here serving faithfully.
I love it. I'm gonna invite producer Misha Watson.
Woo, yay!
Come on to the call. She's been sitting quietly, just kind of taking it all in. If you're watching this, you might not be able to see this, but she's like nodding. She's like amening.
Oh, I'm so in. I'm the fly on the wall who's actually the loudest one in the room. I just had myself on mute,
nice,
so I could learn and take it in. But I have truly been enjoying this conversation. I love that you're giving Melinda her flowers, because sometimes it's hard. People think we don't need to hear it because we know, but we don't know. So it's good to hear it. I love you, girl. I really do. I'm so grateful that you got to this conversation with us. And what I wanted to ask was I was thinking about the youth pastor who is still on the fence, who's like, look, true. I'm like my own lead pastor's not like sold on it yet. Like I'm not sure if I'm allowed to go yet, or I don't know if I have the funds to be able to get the ticket. Like all that kind of stuff, like is still keeping them on the fence. You've been a part of this for so many years, and it's so dear to you and dear to all of us. How would you, let's say I am a youth pastor, okay? How are you
You'd be a good youth pastor. You'd be a great youth pastor, by the way, Misha. Like, you'd be a really good youth pastor. Just saying.
You think? No, you know what? No, I couldn't, because I would just be like, okay, show me the tea. Like, let me sit down and sell a tea. No, I couldn't. I just couldn't do it, because every time I hang out with young people, I just want to hear about their lives, and I follow no rules and no like order.
Yeah, you're right. You'd be a great youth leader, like alongside the youth pastor.
Yeah. That's exactly it. Like literally.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. No. The pastor is the pastor thing. Yeah. I pastor by sitting there and hearing all the tea. And then, help them along that way. But I just certainly cannot be the one in charge of the schedule. Right. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But yeah, that's my thing, is that like, how would you be able to convince, or not even convince, but just encourage a youth pastor who's still on the fence about coming out this year?
I know exactly what I would say. I would go to my youth. I would go to my pastor and say, the only way that I can lead well is if I'm well. The only way that I can serve well is if I'm well. So if you want a healthy, strong youth pastor in your church, then you need to send me to Today's Teens Conference so that I can be filled up, I can be resourced, I can be strengthened, I can be encouraged, so that I can go and lead my team, my youth well, and lead the church well. Pastor, don't you want, a youth pastor to be strong on your team? And so this will help me. I honestly, more and more, as even in the work I do, I have to be strengthened well, physically, mentally, spiritually, to then be able to do the work that I do. So the youth worker should say that. Say, listen, you want me, to continue to be sustainable in the work that I'm doing, not like, always struggling and angsty and stressed out. I need a day. I need to be a day with my kids. I need to be a day to get away from the church, space in this town, to just be filled up and be with people that are like-minded, that will encourage me.
Come on. I hope everyone took notes. Take some notes. You can take that to the bank right there. That's so good. Don't you want me to be healthy and filled and resourced? And don't you want me to like get out of the way I've been doing everything the same way for years and years and years? Let me be resourced and taught. Oh my gosh. Take some notes, everybody.
And then great. You could even say, listen, and I can come back and I'll do a report, like to the board, to you, to the church. If you want some accountability, to the church, and I'll share what our kids experience. I mean, I'll show you some social videos. We'll do a lunch and learn night, whatever, a night. But yeah, I'll come back and share what I'm learning. And that actually could maybe encourage the volunteer team, the other parts of the church in what I'm learning. Because it's not just for youth workers, it's about leading teams. So I would say that. I said, this day is your day. This day is for your strengthening, for your health, for your spiritual well-being, for you to feel not alone. So you need to come. And so, Pastor, thanks so much. Send me the money. Here's the money. Let's go. I'm going.
Let's go. I'm going with Today's Teens. Let's go. That was so good. That's so good. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Back to you, Chris. Back to you.
I'm a part of the team and now I want to go. Like that's like I'm already going and I want to go. Like that's how good I was. Like I'm already there. And I'm like, I need to sign up for this thing. It don't make no sense. I'm signed up and I'm like, yo, I need to unsign up and then re-sign up. That's like
I need to be healthy.
I need like that's what you tell somebody before they run up a mountain. Like that's sort of like that's that corner talk before the 12th round of a boxing match. Like that's that stuff. That's why Melinda is Melinda and we're not.
Amen.
That's why Melinda is Melinda and we are not. That's right there. Let her cook. Come on,
let
Melinda.
Her cook, friend. Let her cook.
So too, listen, you get to hang out with Chris, me, and Misha at the conference. I mean, that should be something that would be like, yes, and Mike Gordon, of course. Oh, and Matt. Okay, yes. I don't have time to name up all the people.
List goes on. The list goes on of people who are there.
But it is pretty some spectacular, fun people that are going to be mingling around in there. And that's the other thing too, is that, I will say this, is that there have been times where people have approached me and said, hey, I've wanted to meet you, have a thought, or I want to encourage you, or hey, want to ask you this. And I've loved that. And so it is, I will say this, it is an opportunity to meet some of the people that you see, that you may be like, hey, I've always wanted to ask them something or, say something to them. And so, the conference is amazing. And even just if you're a networker or connector, I will say it's one of the best.
It is
one of the best places for connection, for church, for, youth workers, for leaders. Because, okay, I'll be honest. So partly that's why I keep going back is because I just want to be in the space of like really amazing people.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. I love it. I love just hanging out and meeting people too. So it's a really great day for that.
Melinda, I want to thank you so much for giving of your time to be with us.
So fun. Thank you.
We'll close the way we opened. The appreciation for you, from a personal level, from a professional level, is just top shelf. Just top shelf. I hope you feel honored. I hope you feel in this conversation you felt honored, that you felt like not just your time was honored, but your work and you as a person have been honored, because we appreciate you legitimately.
I did. I really did. Thank you.
And the hope is that you, as you've poured into us in multiple ways in your ministry and in your life, that today you feel a little bit of what we have experienced from your voice and your experience and your story and your testimony and your legacy. You feel a little bit of that pour back into you, that you leave this conversation going like, ooh, I'm her. I'm her. No one's ever told me that. And I've thought about it, but I put that away because I didn't think it was okay. But today, I'm her.
This has been one of the most amazing interviews and conversations. Honestly, thank you. I honestly didn't expect this when I was coming in. I'm like, I'm going to get everybody to sign up for the Today's Teens conference. Everybody. And didn't know this beauty and moment that I would receive from the two of you. And thank you. Thank you. I think for so many leaders in Canada, we do the work. We are faithful. We work hard. And I think I'm even being moved to actually call a few of the leaders I know to do what you just did. I do. I feel like we need to do that more. We sometimes forget, and so I thank you for that. It means a lot. You have no idea how much that meant to me today. So thank you.
Well, this is you talk about community. Like this is the proverbial lobby before the lobby that we're all together in a couple of weeks. This is the lobby that we get to be in, where this is what we will be doing. Some of us might be skipping a session or two, but we be hanging out, just speaking life into one another. And we do that through encouragement. We do that through making fun of one another as siblings can, right? Yeah. We do that through correction. We do that through encouragement. We do that through, hey, I have a project. What do you think? We do that. And so to be able to do that with you for this moment in time has been a privilege. I know that I can say that for Misha as well. Misha's on site just like nodding.
I am. I love it here. I just want to stay. so nice.
Heather, can we keep going and do 5 more podcasts?
Jiffy peanut butter, sponsor us. Folgers Coffee, sponsor us, and we can do this all the time. But until then, Melinda, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate you. We love you. All the flowers, all the flowers, all the flowers, all the flowers. And if you are a pastor, if you are a youth leader, if you're a youth worker, if you are a student who's somehow found this on YouTube while looking for Minecraft stuff, I don't know what kids do anymore. I have my 2 kids, they scare me. The point I'm trying to make is if you found this, join us. todaysteens.ca. Register for the Today's Teens Conference. Be there with us because we believe in you. We believe that this will help you become more and more of who God wants you to be. So for myself, for producer Misha, for our guest, the legend, Melinda Estabrooks, thank you so much for listening and watching the Today's Teens podcast. We'll see you next time.